Uh, um, this isn't a topic or a kind of video that I really want to make any more of, but it's a topic that I'm pretty passionate about. So we're just gonna go into it head first. Yesterday, as of me writing this, we got a bit of news from games industry journalist and insider Jeff Grubb regarding the state of EA owned studio Motive. Earlier last year, they put out an excellent remake of Dead Space. The original is a seminal game, not just for the industry or the medium of horror in general, but to me personally. When the series was in its prime, I was obsessed with it. I had a fan website made around it. I played that fucking mobile game. I watched Isaac death compilations endlessly. I love this shit. I love it. To this day, Dead Space 2 is my favorite game of all time, and it's something I'd like to make a video about if I could ever figure out something to say about it that other people already haven't. So, all that being said, I hold this series very near and dear to my heart, and Motive's remake just blew my mind. Just blew my mind. There are very few series that really deserve the level of fidelity that Dead Space's world demands. What had me even more excited was the secret ending. It heavily implied that were these remakes going to continue, that we might have gotten something completely different than what the original sequels ended up doing. But that isn't happening anymore, and I want to talk about why, because I think it's something we really shouldn't be too shocked about. TLDR. Grubb reported that the Dead Space 2 remake was cancelled and Motive was sentenced to the battlefield mines while they simultaneously worked on their Iron Man game. EA came out pretty fast, saying that while they don't normally comment on rumors, that there is no validity to this story. Look, Hey. I like EA more than most people. I think ever since Jedi Fallen Order, they've really turned things around and put out a lot of good games. But they're fucking lying, man. This game's canceled. It's so obviously canceled. I think we're extremely lucky to have gotten this remake in the first place. And this is where we get into the whys. Making a AAA game, especially one that looks as good and plays as good and just is overall great as Dead Space Remake is no small feat. And for EA, it's probably a very, very expensive one. Respawn can spend hundreds of millions of dollars on a sequel to Fallen Order, and EA will keep writing blank checks because the return on that investment is ridiculous. It's a Star Wars adventure game. But putting that same level of money into an infinitely more niche IP, it's a bigger risk. From what we know, Dead Space sold around 2 million-ish copies. And on the surface, it sounds like a solid number. But let's do some quick maths. Let's not even consider sales, of which Dead Space got plenty. Hypothetically, let's say that every copy sold was at the full fat $70 US price point. I'm just gonna look at the screen for this. Printing and distribution costs for physical copies, cuts to the retailers selling those physical copies, 30% cuts to the major console and PC storefronts for digital sales, EA's own subscription service, marketing, etc. The only way EA is making the maximum potential return on any given sale is if they're selling it on their own PC store. And nobody in their right fucking mind is doing any of that. So, with all of that in mind, with, a $2.5 With a development cycle of 2.5 years, even in a relatively cheap area for game development like Montreal, it's hard to fathom the sales really satisfying the people at the top, even if the game did edge out some profitability. All of that to say, AAA gaming is just generally getting safer also. We live in a time where our money is worth less than ever, things are becoming more expensive than ever, and we ultimately have to hold our money a little closer to our chest. And that just doesn't apply to us. Like, production budgets for entertainment are skyrocketing, and that just leads these corporations down paths of least resistance and mass appeal more than ever. That doesn't mean I dislike AAA gaming. I do love it. But if you've been playing games as long as I have, and you follow the industry as closely as I do, the pattern becomes increasingly easier to recognize. Oh, his hair. I'm chopping this fucking hair off, bro. I think we should consider ourselves lucky that we even got this remake in the first place. And as cool as it is to imagine what a remake of 2 or even 3 would have looked like, for all intents and purposes, this franchise died over a decade ago, and it really is okay if it stays that way. There's one more point I'd like to get across before I go, and that's that you people need to buy your fucking video games. If you're watching me, if you've come across my channel in any way, you're probably way deeper into this hobby than the average person. I know paying $70 for a game stings, but I've really come around on this particular discussion. Relative to how much other forms of entertainment cost, it's actually kind of ridiculous how comparable games are to them for the amount of time and enjoyment you can get out of a single game. Streaming and subscription services exist in the market to catch people who aren't willing or don't have the means to support the upfront cost of entertainment, but the evidence that these services only lose money grows every day. So much money, in fact, that the combined cost of these monthly services is just, it's starting to cost more than a one-time payment. It's ridiculous. It's not our responsibility to financially support these companies or specific products if they don't deliver. And there's an entire political discussion to be had regarding the wages of the working class and how they're not keeping up with costs, so why do they keep expecting us to pay more? But I promise you, there is a direct correlation between all of that and these increasingly safe bets corpos are leaning on. So I'm begging you, if there's a game out there that you have genuine interest in, and it's good and not busted, like Dragon's Dogma 2, or Jedi Survivor, or Dead Space, even that had a couple problems on PC at launch, and you have the means to do so, buy it. We need to support the things we enjoy, not only for the future of those properties, but for the future of the people making them. It's the least we can do, and it's also the most effective way to show them that we want more. Thanks.